Hello, good morning to you all. Hello,
Good
can
morning.
you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. How about the shared PowerPoint presentation? Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, good. So today is our last session. Apart from that, when we talk about MFE9, we will have another one on-site session with Rasmin probably on next week. So later on, MFE9 module is going to finish. And today, before we finish in the today's session, we are planning to take a little bit of time to discuss about assignment. So yeah, if anyone has any issues, so then we are going to discuss on the assignment. Okay, fine. I will start the today's session. Today, our topic is financial crisis and implication for Sri Lanka. So under this point, we are going to discuss main financial crisis what we faced. So when we talk about under the financial crisis, we talk about the global financial crisis since Sri Lanka is also a open economy. So then we are going to discuss all that means major global financial crisis. Apart from that, recent financial crisis plus some related some economy financial crisis, why we tend to discuss like that. So to take some sort of example from these sort of crisis, and we are going to identify is there anything that we can get from that implications. Fine, so then we are start the today's session. Before we start, we are just going to have an idea what is financial crisis. A situation in which financial institution or assets suddenly lose a large part of their value is considered as a financial crisis. Financial crises are not new to the world, so then we know it's sudden loss of a large part of the economy. So these things we'll call financial crisis. This is normally when you talk about financial crisis, normally this is starting from financial sector. So then it will lead to financial crisis and it will disturb entire the financial system within the economy. So also the financial crisis is not new. So we want to evaluate throughout the years we can experience financial crisis. Economists are arguing we can experience a crisis within the world every 10 years time. So then it may be subject to change, that means 10 to 15 years. So we can experience a financial crisis within the world. It may be any part of the world. Okay, fine. So once you talk about the global financial crisis, failing global aggregate demand, so then we know AD equals C plus I plus G plus NX. So then liquidity shortage and credit crunch, a sudden sharp reduction in the availability of money or credit from banks. So that means we know that credit crunch, that means reduction of liquidity within the economy. And this is now generally controlled by the financial authorities. So this is we call credit crunch and liquidity shortage in financial sector. So loss of people spending ability in the real sector. So then liquidity shortage plus credit crunch and less spending ability, or in other we can say less purchasing power. So all these things are initial trigger for the crisis. So in here we talk about the entire, that means aggregate, that means fiscal plus monetary both part. Decline in aggregate demand lead to fall in world output, employment, and depreciation in exchange rate. So then decline in AD. So then AD going down will ultimately lead to output going down. So then output going down means less production, less demand, less consumption, less investment. So then all these things ultimately lead to, that means, increase in the unemployment, or in other we can say employment opportunities is going down, and depreciation of exchange rate. So then less dollar will come in. So then, and when the crisis is normally happening, we know more cash flow is out. That means rather than inflow, so more we can experience more outflow. So then all things will lead to depreciation of exchange rate. So then these are the normal consequence of the crisis. So this part we have discussed, but we just reminiscing to more understanding this point. So then we know this is output y-axis and the x-axis is time. So then this is the way the cycle is going. So this is going with the GDP. When GDP going down, we know it's a trough. And when this is happening for a long period of time, we will call this is recession. So GDP going up is recovery, and this peak level we discuss as a boom. Yeah. So then we are having the, we know these things, but we just reminisce what we discussed in previous studies. Okay, then we are going to have a little bit of idea on major economic recession in the world, or in other we can say crisis. So Great Depression. So then what is the recession between, we are going to discuss this point as well generally. Yeah, so then we'll take this point. So, slowdown in growth for continuous period is usually called recession. A prolonged period of recession will call depression. So that means when this is happening for a recession for a long period of time, this is will call depression. So then, so in here the Great Depression, why we name the, sometimes we know the Great Depression means all the macroeconomic variables were at a low level. So after the Second World War, that means interest rate low, inflation, purchasing power, saving, all things is low. So then, so at that time, so only the government can intervene to overcome this sort of situation. So then, world crisis in 70s, oil embargo, Latin American debt crisis, economic crisis on 1993, East Asian financial crisis 97, dot-com crisis 2001, global financial crisis 2000. This is much familiar for us. So most of the economists are saying at that time the second largest crisis after the Great Depression, when people talk about the 2007 crisis. This is which was happening in US. So we are taking a little bit of time to discuss about this US financial crisis, or this global financial crisis, or subprime mortgage crisis. Apart from that, so we experienced 2019-21 period, the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So then now, here that means economists are analyzing the COVID-19 is the largest crisis after the Great Depression. But once we talk about this global financial crisis and COVID crisis, yeah, we can see this too. Is it visible when I scroll the slide? Is it visible for you? Is it scrolling?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Fine. Sometimes, so when I scroll, you can see that you can, yeah, fine. So once we see these things, we can see This is the 2007 global financial crisis, and this is the COVID crisis. So once we evaluate these two, we can see the COVID crisis is quite deeper. So then we can see the advanced economies, the orange color, the quite like a brown color is emerging market and developing economies. So then we can see these both economies were highly affected. Yeah. Uh, can you? There is a mic is on. Ravindu, can you please mute your mic? Right. So then, once you evaluate these things, advanced economies and emerging economies and developing economies, so you can see throughout the COVID crisis is highly affected. So similarly, the economic crisis began, so when we are talking about the Greece crisis, Greece government expenditure comprised 20%, that means 20.3% of GDP compared to 20.2 of all European GDP. So that means one country expenditure is 20.3, but the entire Eurozone expenditure is 20.2. That means we can see how is their expenditure level is. So Greece government budget deficit to GDP went to 5%, 5.7 in 2007, and it was increased 2009 to 16%. So that means the idea means high expenditure rather than revenue. So then it is when high expenditure rather than revenue, the deficit going to be wider. Irresponsible borrowing more than it reported by Greek government. That means Greek government debt, that means to GDP is 178.6%. This was against the Maastricht Treaty. So then we discussed the Maastricht Treaty was introduced at that time. So according to the Maastricht Treaty, in Eurozone, the debt to GDP ratio need to be to maintain, they agreed to maintain at 60. But in Greece in 2017, it was quite like 3 times high, 178.6. So then more and more borrowing of debts. So then very high non-productive expenditures. So then now that means productivity is very less. So then why the productivity has gone down? So they have introduced inefficient pension schemes, retired as early as 40 or 50, 45. So that means that means women can retire 40 and men can retire 45. Also more benefits like for 1 baby, 2 baby, 3 baby, like more benefit. And let's say the best employee benefit. So more time for, that means maternity leave, like that. As a percentage of GDP, Greece had a second biggest defense spending in NATO after US. So then they spent heavily for NATO as well. So after US, expenditure on 2004 on Olympics. So then the expenditure on Greece Athens Olympic was that amount was €7 billion. So then all these things were another factor for the crisis. So then they have made this point as a very high non-productive expenditures. And single euro currency, lower loan rate, and more banking lending for consumptions, low cost of luxurious goods such as high-end German sports cars. So then low interest rate they have introduced. More and more banking lending, that means they didn't consider on much when they make lending. So they didn't identify the customer is prime or subprime or their level. So then the financial institutions start lending more and more. And they spend on high-end German sports car. So then, like that, more unproductive decisions, or that means some wrong in policy making decisions. This may be on the monetary policy decision. Huge trade deficits boomed from 4% to 15% to GDP by 1990 to 2008. That means they didn't do any exportation. They import everything for consumption activities, and they spend a very high-end luxurious living style. So then, as of that reason, what happened? More and more importation rather than exportation. So trade deficit went up. Then bad debts, non-performing loans as a percentage of total loan recorded from 4% in 2008 to 34% in 2014. So then So then when they make lending, so they didn't consider about the customers' repayment capacity. So which ultimately lead to make more and more non-performing loans. So then this was increased to 34% when it come to 2014. In April to late April 2014, credit rating agencies downgraded Greek bonds to junk status. So then, as of these reasons, so debt default and all these matters ultimately lead to downgrade the rating level. Yeah. So then, to the lowest in the eurozone. Also, after 2007 global financial crisis, was very difficult to get new loans and funds and started to dry up. The public debt increased to unmanageable proportions. So at this situation, so then they couldn't be able to get assist any sort of country. Why similarly, this 2007-8 global financial crisis affected heavily eurozones as well as US and some other developed economies. So then they could be able to finance. That means they could be able to get any financial assistance. So then that lead to go economy down. So that's why the emissions start to dry up. Yeah. So then with this, all these things, they experience high corruptions and very inefficient situation. Also, that means most of the information they are mentioned, they have fraud the documents. That means and obtain more and more loans. Or that means that means all the statistical report they all are they that means it's not visible. So then policymakers also couldn't be make any decisions. Where are we? So then all the documents they have forged. So then and more corruptions and very inefficient situation. Also tax evasion by the civilians and business houses. So then when this is happening, so then people stop paying taxes, but not even the citizens, the household, the business sector also did so. So then what ultimately happened? Revenue went down. So then this is the situation. So we can see the this was mentioned 1997 to 2019. So the blue color Greece and the green color Eurozone. So then we can see how the Eurozone is going and how the Greece performance. So that level. So then the major learning from Greece social and economic crises are: do not over leverage. Spending more than earning is always dangerous. So then this is applicable for household sector, country, and all. So that means according to our that means income, we need to make our spendings. And irresponsible borrowing should be avoided. That means when you are borrowing, it should be for productive purposes. But that means purposes. So in we can say, so when government is make borrowing, it should be on investment, not for consumption. Be productive all the time. So that means when we make the decision, all these things need to be in a productive manner, not for some unnecessary expenditure patterns and unnecessary luxurious expenditure pattern until the economy is coming to some sort of boom level. Do not forge any record. So then this also we discussed. So then if we forge the document, so then any policymaker couldn't be able to make decisions. What sort of correct decision that they could make? If we know the real scenario, if we know if it is whatever thing is wrong, if we know this is wrong, we can make decisions, we can correct it. So, but if he doesn't know this is wrong or right or wrong, it's a problem. How make the proper decision? So then, as of that reason, we are saying it's not to make any document fraud. So that means all the statistical need to be that means accurate, and there should be a transparency in all these things. And do not avoid taxes. So then taxes need to be paid as much as possible. Why? This is income for the government. So then government can make other expenditures. That means government can utilize those money for uh, essential expenditures like salary payment and some other public expenditures and all these things. So then revenue need to be have to the government. And the lastly they have mentioned live within your means. So then live within according to your capacity. So then we can see some photos and pictures was circulating. So lending people come a very simple vehicle, but the buying the people Sri Lankan people going with very high luxurious vehicle. But we need to understand where are we. So what is our situation, and what is our income, and what are our burdens and all these things. According to we need to live according to our scope. So this is the other idea. Okay, fine. So then we are going to get a little bit more understanding on 2007-8 global financial crisis. I won't take much time, but you can read and get to understand. I'm a little bit of touching these things since this is soon after that was COVID crisis, and that means heavily discuss crisis is 2007-8 subprime mortgage crisis. So we know this was initially happened on the US, and this initially situation was the crisis in the housing sector. So then this ultimately lead to a crisis within US, and this was spread to other countries like Japan, UK, India, and whatever the country that they have obtained the US securities, so they heavily affected. So then how it was happened and how the US financial institutions have that means affected was briefly described here. You can take time and discuss. That means you can take time and read and have an idea. So yeah. So when we talk about this one, you can see at that time how this 2007-8 financial crisis were affected. So in emerging Asia like China, India, Indonesia, Korea, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan, Thailand. So emerging Asia, okay, were affected. Any emerging economies, the orange type color, and then advanced economies, red. Okay, so then emerging economies, we know BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Okay. So response to this is a quite good point. So response to US subprime crisis. So these are things that we need to have an idea. So how they make solutions to overcome this subprime crisis. Solution vary from country to country. So this is also a good point. So solution vary to country. That means so whatever measures that we apply in India will not be applicable for our country. So then according to the country, the solution or measures need to be changed. The Bank for International Settlement suggests different policies to tackle the issues. So then the policy measures adopted. So then we discussed this. This time was a rebirth of Keynesian policies were happen. So then we know with 1970 with oil embargo, the demand, that means the more people who follow the Keynesian styles and Keynesian policies. They stop to follow, then they start to uh, adapted with Milton Friedman's with the oil embargo, and we discussed this was the stagflation situation because it was hit to the Phillips curve. So then the rebirth of Keynesian will happen during this time. So then most of the policies heavily linked with Keynes AD curve. That means Keynes aggregate demand model AD equals C plus I plus G plus. In next situation were main the policy decision. So based on that, most of the policies were uh, introduced. So then we will see what are those things. And monetary policy relaxed. That means interest rate were lower, then more and more money in the economy. Interest rate were lower, which Keynesian said. Introduce fiscal stimulus. That means increase in G, increase in government expenditure. Encourage major finance institutions to increase credit to the consumers. So that means more and more lending. Interest rate going down and encouraging more and more lending. Legislation and regulatory arrangement for easy business. So then smooth business activities and government bailout if something is going wrong. So any finance institution, any institution, so any insurance company. So government will bail out or central bank will bail out to smooth process of the system. So this is the interesting chart how the each and every economy was adapted. So we'll take the CA Canada, the first one. So then they have introduced easy monetary policy system, but they haven't introduced in fiscal stimulus, liquidity assistance in local currency, lend foreign exchange, and they didn't follow expand deposit insurance, then guarantees on non-profit liabilities, create demand for assets like that. But once we see about, so when we see the Canada situation, so they have gone through some monetary expansion or monetary easing activities. So once you see the US, so then they have considered both fiscal easing plus monetary easing. So, or another, we can say fiscal expansion plus monetary expansion. Both situation we can identify. See, easy monetary policy, introduce fiscal stimulus. Okay. So why this was US heavily affected? So they need immediate recovery. So EU also, see, you can see they have followed all these things. China, very limited, but mainly on expansion monetary policy, like that. So then you can see according to the economy how it was affected, the policy decision also implementing accordingly rather than adopting all. So if we adapt without proper understanding how economy goes, sometimes it will be contra with the system and it will go for further recession. Okay, so then some example of interest rate reduction. So then this has mentioned how that interest rate was reduced. So we can see so from 6.25 to 3.5. So heavy reduction. That means throughout the last 25 years, biggest cut. So this was happened in Euro area, Canada, Switzerland, all these things. So UK also mainly work on interest rate reduction. You see, after 315 years, they have lower the interest rate to 1.5%. So once we see these things, we can see the success measures including interest rate adjustment. So then throughout after adjusting interest rate, this paper article saying this was published on 2009 May, so Financial Times. So then they are showing representing with that, the various countries, China, France, UK, US. So China, with the one, so they have considered this president considered a few macroeconomic variables. So once you talk about interest rate, so China, so then after a short period of that means they could be able to overcome this situation with the interest rate easing. So then France fastly, UK also fastly, US they didn't recover much fastly. So then yeah, survey signal every eurozone. So then we can see when it come to that means February or March on 2009, they start to recover. So when it come to May, the partial of that means recession, they could be able to recover. And this is also another information. So US unemployment and USD GDP. So you can see it was going down. That means the unemployment, the minus situation is going down. Okay. So when it come to mid 2008, highly unemployment situation, now it's slowly going down. That means slowly recovering. Yeah, then the shares and stock situation. So you can see it's going up. China. So yeah, they also start to come up that situation. So yeah, so this crisis, then when we see how this was affect to Sri Lanka, so we also didn't affected much since at the time we have implement some exchange rate control measures and bank supervision measures. So we type on this two in at that time. So then the some bad impact of US crisis we didn't get much. So we didn't affect, but we lose some exportation market. Yeah, since we export heavily to Euro, US. So as of that reason, we lost some exportation market. Apart from that, we didn't affected heavily with the US subprime mortgage crisis. So once you talk about Sri Lankan case, maintain low level of inflation in that era, maintain tight monetary policy system. So then we can see the increasing of interest rate from 7 to 10.5. So other market interest rate also increased. That means at that time Sri Lanka or the monetary policy it performed as a tight monetary situation. So and maintain low inflation level and higher interest rate situation. So further it was identifying how it was happened in this time. So then interest rate was increased and the other market rate also increased. And so what are the things was we implemented at that time? High interest rate and reserve goes down and money supply goes down. Trade to private sector gone down and maintain low inflation situation. That means simply we can say perform a tight monetary system at that time. So we can see at that time when we perform how the policy rates, the growth of credit in here, the purple color growth of credit to private sector going down the green money supply within the economy has gone down, interest rate, lending rate gone up. So that means simply whatever we have discussed, we can see in graphical manner. Yes, so then this is the graph to show the decline of inflation. Effect of US global crisis on Sri Lanka on export market, as I discussed. So we lose some export market shares and we lost foreign remittance and exchange and foreign reserves. Anyway, we experience of exchange rate depreciations and less foreign dollars. So then our foreign reserves level went down at that time. So banking activities. So then less credit and less deposit system and on financial institution development. So then financial institution could make much profit at that time and GDP growth and output also we perform a slow GDP output as well as slow economy. That means in other we can say lower GDP output plus slow economic growth we experienced at that time. So then we are going to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So government fiscal response to COVID-19. So then they have identified various economies like advanced economies, middle income economies, and low income economies. So then, while the spending response in advanced economies has been massive, low income countries represent a lack of fiscal space to compare. So that means, in other, we can say the advanced economies spend heavily, and the others spend according to their capacity. So then they spend heavily on discretionary fiscal measures, that means increasing G and various measures, and the loan guarantees and other credit measures. So that means in other we can say the fiscal and monetary policy expansion heavily we can identify in advanced economies, but the others according to their capacity they lend. The advanced economy work more, but the other economies could work on low. That's a simple idea to overcome this COVID crisis situation. So then 2020 quarter two April to June GDP growth. So then in this time how the GDP growth happened, we can see China, but worstly affected India as well as the UK, these countries. Okay, Mexico, all this. And these countries least affect. So the heavily affected countries, this one according to the IMF publications. And downgrade of sovereign debt in 2020 exceed any other. So then means once you see, so downgrade of the sovereign, so we can see 82, 97, and yeah, 2007, 8. So then once you evaluate the heavily on COVID period, so then so they have considered 82, 97, 98, 2008, 2009, GFC means global financial crisis, Asian crisis, debt crisis, international debt crisis. So then this is COVID crisis. So then we the heavily downgraded at that time. So when we talk about the world economic system. So then this was mentioned the trade-off between economic growth and health. So then how the countries was affected with this crisis situation, this COVID. So then they consider the health as well. So in that means confirmed death per million person, and accordingly how the economic growth will happen. The worst countries we can see UK, Chile, uh, US, but the least affected countries you can see Taiwan, uh, Japan, Singapore, but low death rate similarly. So not much that much of affection to the growth, but it is on minus, but not largely affected. But these countries, UK, Chile, US, so high death rate plus the low growth rate. So then the countries where they have mentioned here, you can read and have a clear understanding. Yes, so then we are going to see the measures that contribute to minimize the adverse impact of COVID-19 pandemic crisis on Sri Lanka. So introduce relaxed monetary policy system, exchange rate control measures, bank supervision measures, and announce growth stimulus packages. So you'll see all these things. The COVID-19 outbreak has substantially challenged the macroeconomic situation of low growth rates and significant fiscal pressures. Muted inflation and the outbreak of COVID-19 prompted the central bank to ease monetary policy several times in the first half of 2020. So then they reduced the interest rate and follow easy monetary system. The external current account deficit estimated to have narrowed 2.2% and reduced in imports despite the slowdown in tourism receipts. So then the current account was narrowed down by any reduction of import. Similarly, we experience that means less tourist service receipts. So as of that reason, we lost around 4 billion US dollars per year at that time. Issuance of international sovereign bonds, 4.4 billion to help the debt repayment. And however, the reserves low relative to short-term external liabilities. So according to the our external liabilities means debt settlements. So we maintain low reserves level. In July, the exchange rate remained broadly stable despite depreciation pressure on the March and April 2020. So exchange rate maintained a little bit manageable level at that time. Announced a growth stimulus package in December 2019. It combines tax cuts. So reduce the VAT rate from 15% to 8%. New hiring of civil servant, debt relief to small medium entrepreneurs, transfer payment scheme introduced to low income communities in a different ways, like giving 5,000 rupees. So they know all these things, but ultimately all these things negatively impact for economy and high expenditure, and this is also another reason for the start of this crisis situation. COVID-19 is likely to worsen the fiscal account through the reduced revenue and increased expenditure related to further fiscal stimulus. So then further this happened to reduce the revenue, and apart from that, increase the expenditure. So then ultimately what happened? Revenue low, higher expenditure, but deficit went up. In August 2021, central bank increased the policy rates to 5% to 6%. Also SRR. So then we are going to see the causes of financial crisis. So what are the reasons for financial crisis? So the causes of financial crisis vary depending on their nature. So according to the nature, according to the country, according to the economy, and according to the economy, how they work. So then this phase of the crisis and recovery also vary. Uh, a macroeconomic circumstance. Trigger of financial crisis may due to error in macroeconomic policies adopted by relevant authorities. So then some error in macroeconomic policies adopted by relevant authorities. That means we can take an example from Sri Lanka. So then we identify we printed heavily money to offset the debts. Also, we didn't go to meet some financial assistance on right time. We got delayed. And if we go at that time, sometime our rating was high, so then we could be able to manage it for we could be able to tolerate the situation in some sort of safe manner. But when it get worse, so then when the rating goes down, so when the problem is worse, so then it's difficult to get assistance from anyone. The reason is why we already, the bad tag already is applied or stick. Once you stick to that, it's a problem to get rid of that. Then very high and low interest rate, shift of exchange rate regime, and unnecessary slowdown or sharp increase in inflation are some of the macroeconomic reasons to trigger the crisis. So that means even a high or low interest rate also problem. Even that means depreciation or over depreciation or over appreciation also problem. So high inflation, low inflation also a problem. So then, so that's why when you talk about the central bank objective, they have mentioned all these things: price stability, system stability, all these things. So why? These are very concerned, very crucial points. So then why, if we didn't do so, the economy will end up with various aspects of crisis. So simple example of the how the inflation situation which was read and how it was affected. Instability in price for a continuous period will cause uncertainties among economic agents in an economy and may lead to financial crisis. Example is hyperinflation. It quickly erodes the real value of the local currency as the price of good and services increase. So then services also included in this one. In 2008, you can take an example for these things. In 2008, Zimbabwe, due to currency instability, inflation surged to 2.2 million, and the value of Zimbabwean currency fell approximately 688 billion per 1 US dollar. To get 1 US dollar, you need to bring 688 billion the Zimbabwean currency. Similarly, in 1946, so this example in Zimbabwe, the other one is Hungary pengo denomination value is 10 to 20%. So then it's very high. So then, for example, it was given the 100 trillion Zimbabwean dollar bank. So that means 10 to 14%. That means 10 to 14. So that means though the size of the figure is high, the value of the currency is low. Though it get more zeros, that means though the numerical value is high, the actual value of the currency is low. high dependency on short-term foreign finance by way of borrowing or investment can lead to financial crisis because of sudden withdrawal of short-term foreign finance or investment. That means when you are another example for crisis, another point, this when you are borrowing. So we discussed this point also when you're talking about debts. We always need to go for concessional debt. So low interest rate, a long period of borrowings with some concessional period. So then once we make the return, so then we can start the payment, not soon after borrowing. So then there is a time to economy to settle. But if we borrow a short term, and so then when the investment and everything is going on, if we had to pay all these things, or if we had to start to pay, so then economy is struggling. It's a problematic situation. So that's why then they're saying, so we better not to go to such situation. So then once we evaluate the history also, we can see the Southeast Asian crisis happened in 1997. So then they went for Thailand, they went for short-term borrowing. So then ultimately they could be able to offset, but short-term borrowing a heavy investment. So return couldn't be able to get at that time. So then ultimately what happened, the economy got collapsed. So then some others also there. You can read and get more detailed understanding. So then the next point, prolonged deficit on current account may lead to unstable economic condition and economy creating financial crisis. So then the example also giving, that means anyway, the current account and budget deficit, everything. So Keynesian also said it's okay when the economy is in a recession, better to go for budget deficit, but not to go for years and years, and that means for decades and decades. So once we that our country, even we make budget surplus only 2 times, I think, if I remember, 56 or 55, 56 period. Apart from that, all the other period we maintain budget deficit. It's okay, uh, but throughout the years we work as a developing economy, but not develop. So we need to come with such situation. This deficit expenditure is fine only economy is recovering. Once it booms, so then we need to go for some surplus budget deficit situation. So Keynesian said like that, but it's for a short period of time, but not for decades and decades. So then, like those things. So what ultimately happened? This always this ultimately lead for crisis situation. But if something happen, we are not stable. So then similar thing will happen to our country. The COVID-19 situation. So then if you are in a budget surplus and if you have more money, so then we could be able to sustain and we could be able to recover this crisis fastly. But we used to do that. But if something happened, so then it will worse the case. So then that's the situation. So then, so this is another example for that. So then they have mentioned about they have to consider the Mexican peso. So this is also another example for two. That means current account. That means budget deficit. All these things we better not to maintain deficit for decades and decades. So we need to overcome these situations. So why, if something happen, situation will be worst. Then supervisory concern. Weakness is supervisory activity and may not detect the problem of finance institutions early by central bank or monetary authority, either due to inefficient legal framework or lack of autonomous administration. So then supervisory concern. So that means that's why in each and every economies, each and every country's central bank work as an independent body. So autonomous administration. So then they can make decision according to the economic situation. So entire responsibility, the monetary administration belongs to the Reserve Bank or central bank. So if that is not there, it is also a problem. Also, strong monetary mechanism, monetary framework need to be there. How to perform a financial system. So in here, this community finance system stability is talk about financial system stability. So when you talk about financial system stability, financial institution, all the money within the economy, all this is considering. So then supervisory concern address financial system stability, autonomous on administration, all will cover. So then it should be an independent body, especially the central bank or reserve bank. This type of supervisory devastating may lead the failure of one or many finance institutions. So that means we had a weaker supervisory system. So then financial that means it may lead to fail one. So when, that means failing one means if it is the further it's not strong, it will spread to others as well. Anyway, the legal framework is strong. You can stop from that one. If it is not strong, it will spread to one. So then that's why it has mentioned need to be have a strong regulatory or supervisory framework. So then other reasons. Excessive credit may create credit bubbles by the bursting of which may lead to the failure of financial institution. So then excessive credit, that means example it has taken, the Greece, Ireland, and several European countries occurred due to excessive level of public debts, which were bailout supporting scheme of the IMF. So then this is also there. So that means the so more and more borrowing, more and more credit need to be avoided. Government direction, sometimes due to political reasons, can lead to financial crisis. Some political popular decisions, some promises. So then the initial the trigger of the subprime mortgage crisis also they're saying it's a political decision. So then at that time they promised to give house for all. So then in that case they didn't consider the prime customers and subprime. So then they start to lend forward. So that means then they have introduced these uh, subprime customers as ninja. So then this ultimately lead to crisis. So that means always when we make decisions, so it need to be comply, especially the policy decision need to be comply on country's economic perspective rather than on politically popular decisions. So then the next point is due to an acute pandemic situation. So then there's some pandemic or a crisis any part of the world will also lead to uh, uh, that country plus some other countries uh, crisis. Okay, we'll go to our attachments. Is it visible the shared attachment? In here, yeah, this is on especially focused on the COVID-19 situation, and this was published on 2020 April. So they have considered the other in 18 situation and how it was economic losses and how it was on COVID-19 situation. So then they identified how it is different from the others. So then GDP forecast by private sector as end of March. So then how the GDP is going. So it's not difficult. You can go through that and identify. So then when it is published, so then they identify how this was happened. And this also they are saying it was quite exceed the COVID, the 2007 global financial crisis. So this situation we already identified. Yeah, this was one published 2021. So this is also on COVID, how it impact on economic situation. So then this is also mentioned central bank and prudential measures to address the COVID situation. So various countries, as we see on the 2007 global financial crisis situation, so they also adopted various policy measures. So we can take a little bit of time and can understand the country-wise, US, Japan, UK, Canada, like that. Okay, they are the measures they have mentioned, liquidity, all these things. So then they have taken the Imagine Asia, Middle East Asia, like that. So then the employment situation, major OECD economies. Great situation. It's very, very negative. So then you can do a skim reading and have a understand. Yes, so yeah, before we winding up this session, any difficulties or any gray areas? Questions? So I assume no any question related to today session. So then yeah. So then we'll take the next question, the assignment. Do you have any question on assignment? Anyone?
Sir, yes, sir. Can you just give kind of hints that you are expecting what kind of areas to be covered, sir?
Your question is quite broad. The area means I didn't get that.
That means uh, because the topic is a little bit broader, no, sir. So, what kind of areas that you are expecting for us to cover, sir?
So then the way I got your question is, see, so what we discussed, uh, so then according to your title, so then I have simply I can say, so we consider the post-liberalization era. So then as I discussed, you don't need to take normally we know the post-liberalization era is 77 to today. So that means 77 to 2022. So then if you don't have much information, you can take it, you can narrow down it, and you need to mention those things in methodology. You can consider from 2000 to 2022. So like that. So according to your expectation, you can, your freedom is there. So then, so accordingly, you can make it. So apart from that, what is the other question you have? That means you can. That means uh, you can make it easy, but whatever thing you are doing, you need to mention in the methodology. So is that the way you? Actually, I don't much clear your question, so that's why I just give that answer. So any, is it okay? Any other questions?
So do we supposed to do a research from the beginning, like from the data collection and all?
No. I mentioned that initially when we discussed the assignment. It's not a research, and this is also not a case study. This is quite like a upgraded version. So then it has all scientific component of the research, but it's not a research. We are not doing, so that means data collection, or we normally call this the primary data, non-primary data, nothing, then it's quite difficult. Once you do that, you need to apply a specific research methodology or tool or software to analyze these things. It's quite difficult. So what we discussed, we are getting some published data, and according to the title, you are creating your own one after referring 4 to 5 or 3 to 5 published journal articles. You got the point? Okay.
So if so, sir, how we do the like methodology and the analysis parts?
So I would like to raise a question. How many journal articles have you gone through? How many journal articles you have downloaded?
Around 3.
Yeah. So then, what are the titles of those 3?
Some have like written based on the like poverty of women, poverty, and also like they have narrowed down into some areas likewise.
No, we didn't. Yeah. So then what is our main areas of our? It's microfinancing, credit, and poverty, and we have time frame massing. So then you need to refer. So then you have considered only one area. So then you need to consider on lending. Okay, you have touched the poverty. So say then one other article to need to be touched on microfinance lending, and another article need to be touched on how this was cater to uplift the poverty. Like that, you need to segment according to your title. Yeah, that means no need to take all the articles by poverty. Okay, you need to take from microfinance, which is addressing and lending to the microfinance industry. That means the lending to the this what we call microfinance industry, lending to the microfinance industry, how it was, how much it was lend, and how it was affect to the uplifting the poverty and the time frame. Is it clear?
Yes, so when we are using the published data, so how we develop this methodology and the data analysis part?
Yeah, so then you need to no need to specifically mention methodology. That means so you can mention what are you going to do. So what is your plan? How we are going to do this? We have plan to do this. So any sort of plan, how we are going to do this?
That means referring the secondary data, right?
Yeah. So then you refer the secondary data to assume 20 to year 2000 to 2022, and you get those data, and you work on published data. So then you need no need to specifically mention any methodology like some sort of or module. It's okay if you could construct a model, it's fine. So that means once you read the things you can, if you can construct a model like how to that means elevate the poverty. So then with the poverty indicator, so then you consider the credit lending, and so the how much credit were lending by the financial institution, and so then you are considering the microfinance industry. Like that, you can, according to that, you can take a variable and you can construct a model as well. That's some equation. You know, right, how to write a model. So when you are studying econometrics, you're studying how to write a model. So something like that model you can do it. But then accordingly you can construct. You no need to go specifically like econometric software like EU, Stata, or SPS, or like no, not like that. So then you get some sort of information and then you work on that. That's all.
So in the analysis part, what do you expect in something like this?
Analysis part. So then see, so what you have, so then what you studied those things. So then you can see, you can say something like this. You can see. So assume you consider the for further you can consider. So in Sri Lanka you can say, so once we evaluate, so high credit to Anuradhapura district. So then they have lending to these parties. So accordingly, poverty was elevated. So then all these things you can find information. That means output means throughout that what you get. So yeah, that's the thing. What I feel is you need to read a little bit more journal articles. So that's why you have this sort of question. If you read, so then it's quite like similar to those journal articles. So once you read one or two, even if you read three, so then you have proper idea where to go and how to do. So read those things. So that means once you read more and more, so you can get a proper idea. So what I feel, you need to read more and more. So then accordingly you can get idea. So then not I'm asking not to go detailed research. So just you getting, and if there anything relevant some graph, you can take it, but you need to cite those things. Some information you can get those publication, but you need to cite, but you can't go for plagiarism. You need to show your own work. Clear?
Yes.
So you need to read more. If you don't have much, so what I suggest is segment your topic into few parts, like as we discuss. The time also you can take. Okay, recent one. So then microfinance, that means micro lending. Okay, that means what I'm referring is microfinance, the micro industries. So lending to the micro industries. Then poverty and lending institutions. So accordingly, you refer a few articles. So then what you need to do? So then you need to add all these 5 articles, and you can create your own one. One you need to read. So that means you need to, those issues will be solved once you read. So then those things in those journal articles, they have mentioned how is the output and all these things. So then they have different variables, not like what we discussed. So they have different variables. So then you can know how you're writing a model. So if you haven't studying these things, the model, it's not new. You need to have that means independent variable. Okay, that means one dependent variable like y is quite like y equal uh, some intercept a plus bx plus cy plus d. Quite like that. Let's see. So this is dependent variable. So then few other independent a plus b. Is thing. So like that way, you're creating a model. So just I'm not asking you to do, but stick to that, something like that. So then if you need to find the poverty, this is a poverty, so then other variables. Okay, so then you can construct a model like that, and then you can see. So that means you are doing some sort of new thing. You are innovating. So you have a basic practice of research. So you have preparation of a research. So this is very essential. So then I'm not asking you to go for a model. So if you can write a model equation like that, and accordingly if you can work, this is also fine. But all this information you could be able to get from journal articles. Is it clear for you? So don't think this is a research. This is not a research, but quite like a advanced case study or as advanced assignment.
Okay, sir.
So then what I suggest you to read 3. That means assume this is X1 is credit lending, okay, and X2 the why we consider the poverty. So then this is one variable is year, and the other one is microfinance industries, and the other one, so you can say the commercial bank. Okay, you assume then, well, I have may specify the lending, so then you can in method you can say, so I consider only, so as you assume you have a data who have found information on the commercial bank as well. So then you are saying, in here I consider on commercial bank lending only. I didn't consider the other financial institutions lending. It's fine. So you are preparing for a research paper. Okay, so then actually it's useless of doing a case study. So like simple ones, so then you cut and paste and you just do some sort of case study thing. So since you are a master's student, so there should be some benefit for your future studies as well. So then if you have a little bit of idea in this way, so then it will benefit for your future studies as well. So then we need to do new things, some innovative things, as well as we need to work with international. So then only your value will be go up. Okay. So take this as a challenge. So then it won't be wasted. It won't be never wasted. You are studying new things. You are focusing new things. You are getting new knowledge. So it will be multiple benefit for you. So then I'm pretty sure once you went to maximum of 5 journal articles according to a title, so according to a segment into different variables, and go for 5 journal articles. So then each and every segment of that 5 journal article is there. So then take whatever the required part from this file and create your own one. So don't do any plagiarism. So put your part also, get these things and build a new one. It's easy because it's last 7 years student also they have did, so they also did a nice job. So I'm pretty sure the 23 batch also could be able to challenge this. Okay. Any problem? Any question? Thank you. Are you with me? Hello? Okay. Any problem?
One
Any
small
problem?
thing like, do you plan to give us the midterm test results before the finals, sir? Just to know.
No, don't take those burden. So just focus on these things.
Okay.
So yeah, don't take much stress.
Okay.
And yeah, you won't fail. So sure did. So there won't be any issue since it's a open book. No one will be fail. If you write, that means if you thought purposely, no, I'm purposely failing, and if I write like that, so then I'm also helpless. I know you have written well. So since open book, I have given the relevant tutorials. So then questions also within the scope. So I know you have written well. So it's not a new. So you all are having a good education background. It's not a new for you. I know all will pass. It's not a big deal.
Right. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Forget about those things now. Focus on the next thing. So focus on the assignment and focus on the midterm test. Sorry, the final exam. Also, you have the not even my one, the other modules as well. Focus on these things.
Right.
My one, you are always okay. No harm.
Right. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, the any question with the assignment? So anyway, so what I can do, start work and your assignment, if you have anything, you can write me. So I'll respond to you. So anything, any question, please write me and I'll respond to you. So I'll give my best support for the assignment. So you do your best. So you can do it. It should be. So then initially you should have to have some sort of this confused situation also. Then just you think. So then in this case you'll develop various aspects. So your confusion, some fear, everything will bring new thing. Okay, read. So then try, and if it is once you read at once, you could be able to understand, make a short note, and get some valuable points of to a note. So then you can slowly you can construct. So then that's why I said you could be able to write everything at once. So then open a separate folder for each and every part. That means one folder for introduction, one folder for the literature review, one folder for the methodology, like that, various folders and reference also. Whatever the reference you get, you can include those things. So in a reference list. So then, like slowly you can construct. Once you think about at once all the paper, so it's a confuse. So slowly develop, slowly try to gradually try to take it one by one. So focused on initially uh, the first part thing is read 5 journal articles with not similar. So once you read the poverty, you can, the next one need to be on microfinance, whatever the industry, assume pottery. So the next one is the commercial bank lending to the microfinance industry. So next one, the duration, like that. Consider the journal articles in focusing the various part of the title and take the note and each and every one and construct your own one. So it's not difficult. I'm pretty sure it's not difficult for you. So initially, unless you come into to read and put into some notes, it's difficult. Once you start to do that, it's easy. Okay, start to one point. So start even an introduction or start in a literature review. So like that. So once you read those things, so then once you read 5 journal articles means, so you have a literature review. It's already filled. So then you can take those literatures and you can put in the reference. So then reference also finished. The literature is also finished. So then introduction. So then you are getting all this introduction and you are making your introduction. The introduction part also finished. So then methodology. So then you consider what others did. So then you have different view. No, I'm doing this like this. So then whatever the things you are doing, you are writing. So these things, this way, I'm getting this way, this variable like that, so the methodology part also win. So then outcome. So then your outcome. So then this is the thing I identified. So from this to this year, so Anuradhapur district. So the poverty elevation on poultry industry has gone down. Or no, you can say no any financial institution assists to Kandy district. So like that, it doesn't matter. So then you can write even no need to get assist or no need lending to that industry, you can say, but take some sort of potential area on power, that means microfinance industry, and you can do it. And so when you read and when you discuss our tutorial, we could be able to identify how the lending was happening for microfinance industries. So, and I highlighted that also. So those things you can use. So this is a combination of all your studies. Okay, it's a testing of all your studies. Clear?
Sir, in this case, when we say microfinance, we're talking about the organized microfinance sector, no?
Yes, it doesn't matter. This is also a good question. So if you then that's why. So how can that means how the so we talk about how the lending will happen to microfinance industry and how it was evaluated. So then normally we can take we have information on the formal financial institutions lending as well. But if you once you read there is some journal articles that they have talk about the informal market as well. So if you found such information, you can add that as well. So then and so this article has said so then this market is there. So and this wasn't addressed. So then you can say when you are making conclusion. So this proportion we can consider. So these are the niche market, something like that. So I think if you found some sort of thing, you could add rather than ignoring, and then you can say this hasn't considered or no one has touched this and like that. You got my point? So your focus is there. So then that means simply once you talk about Sri Lanka, we talk about the global situation as a, but our focus is there. So our specialization is there, but we talk about the others as well to make these our focus beauty. You got my point? If you feel it's no need to talk that, forget out that. Okay? You got my point? Clear? Are you
Yes.
okay?
Yeah. Thanks.
If you feel it's no need, forget out that. If you feel it's up to you. It's your work. So it's your work. It's up to you. That's why I make a freedom. I didn't make any frame. So you can do your own. But but if something happening, you can do methodology and then you can work. So if you feel no, I'm considering only the licensed financial companies lending as well. But it's okay if you found when you are reading, if you found some that means unorganized sector lending to also microfinance industry. So then you can take it and you can put it. So then it's the beauty of the paper will go up. Okay, it's up to you. So you can make it as you wish. Yep. Any other question, please?
So that means like we can narrow down the topic under this like theme, right? So we can develop our own topic, right?
No. You can't do.
No, I mean the narrow down that can we narrow down? I mean like to limit to a specific area or something.
No, what we call you can make your limitations. Okay, you don't change anything on the topic. You can make the limitations. We call that limitation. You can make limits, and you can, if you make further limits, you can make a limitation in specific title, and you can, if you want to limit, you can mention in that limitation also, and you can limit. Okay, but don't change and don't remove anything. But the scope need to be there. The relevant limitation you can make according to your scope. Clear?
Can you like give example of what kind of limitation is that? Just an example.
No, it's so how I can make limitations. So then it's your work now. So according to your work, you need to make limitations. You got my point. So you need to read. Just read it. You need to read more. Okay, you need to read more. Don't worry. You need to have only the enthusiasm. If you have enthusiasm, you can go through that. Read. I'm pretty sure read up to 5 journal articles. And is there anything you can write me? Okay, got the point? Okay. If I say these are the limitations, it's a problem. The work to work, the paper to paper, and students to students work, the different set of limitations. So in here, that means no any, then if I make a proper limitation, it's like this. So then I need to give the data set. So I need to construct our own model. I need to give, these are the areas. So then accordingly, all the data I need to give, all the specification I need to do, then you are doing, then you are a data collection or data reporting part. So I'm not getting like that sort of assistant. So what I want to do, you need to create your own one. Your innovative thinking ability, work on new paper, everything will be developed by yourself. Got my point? So I won't like that from you. So you need to do your own work. So then new thing. So then only that side will be developed. Clear?
Sir, just as an example for this limitation, now if I limit it to rural areas in Sri Lanka and limit the study to the last 10 years,
Yeah, that's
is that acceptable?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's fine. That sort of thing. That can be. So assume that you limit to Anuradhapura, and you limit 2 years to this one. So then some others limit to Kandy. Like that. It's fine. Yeah. That can do.
That's what I was asking actually, sir.
Yeah. So then if I said everything, then you will stick to that. So you will stick to that. That's why we are not saying it's normally this is a wrong concept. So actually, so then you will be follower, my follower. No, you need to be your own follower, and sometimes you need to exceed me. So one day it should be. So then you won't exceed anyone. So that means all the students need to go beyond the lecturer's capacity. So then once we put into one frame, you won't go that one, you will stick to that one, you will see this is a comfortable. So no, you need to think, you need to create your own one. So then only you find new ways, new method, new work, all these things. Okay? Yeah, that means once you read those things, your own work, your own points, own system will be that means could be able to generate. Clear?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, fine. So then today is our last session. If you have anything, please let me know. Please write me. If you have any question on the assignment, I'll assist you. So then read. So then read five journal articles. So I'm pretty sure you could be able to overcome this one. Further, after reading the 5 also, if you have anything, you can write me, you can get assist. Okay, fine. So then I stop, and we were, I think we stay around 10, more than close to 3 months. Yeah, close to 3 months we were together. And yeah, I assume you studied something from me. I assume you got something from me, and I assume my all this sharing of knowledge would be a productive information for you, and got new information or new knowledge. So I assume throughout my lecturing period, you studied something. Yeah. So then this is the last part of our session. So I would like to express my thanks for joining the session, and wish you a bright future. So keep studying, facing all this challenge. I'm pretty sure you could be able to get good pass from my one, apart from all the other modules, and always keep on mind to anyhow whatever the circumstance occurred, I'm finishing this degree and getting the qualification. So then get that qualification and bright your future. So thank you very much for
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Next, sir.
No, actually, I'm not taking on semester 2. Yeah, for the moment, no. I'm taking only this model.